Today on What Lurks in the Shadows presents, we're talking about a case that, honestly, it just gutted me when I first read about it. It's not one of those sprawling, complex, multi-state mysteries with a genius killer. It's the opposite. It's small, it's claustrophobic, and it's about the kind of evil that hides behind a smile and a plate of cookies. We're talking about Tracy, California, back in 2009, and the murder of 8-year-old Sandra Cantu. This case is a straight-up betrayal. It hits that primal fear. What if the monster isn't in the woods, but right next door? What if the monster is someone you trust with your kids? So let's get into it. First, let's talk about Sandra. She was 8, a third grader at Jacobson Elementary. Photos of her, she's all smiles, missing front teeth. Just a bright, happy little kid. Her family described her as vibrant, loved skateboarding, loved playing with her friends. She'd just gotten a new pink bike. She was a kid, you know? A normal, happy kid. She lived with her mom, her grandparents, and her aunts at the Orchard Estates mobile home park in Tracy. And let's pause on that for a second. A mobile home park. I don't know if you've ever lived in one, but it's its own little world. It's not a sprawling, anonymous suburb. The homes are close. You know your neighbors. You know their cars, you know their schedules, you know whose dog is barking. It's a community, for better or worse. And that's the foundation of this entire story. Trust. You trust your neighbors. You let your kids play outside. You assume they're safe within that little bubble. And on Friday, March 27th, 2009, it was just a normal Friday. Sandra gets home from school. Around 4 p.m. she's playing outside, bopping around between her house and her friend's house. The usual. And then, she wasn't. Her mom Maria starts calling for her around dinner time. No answer. She checks with the friend. The friend's mom says, "Oh, she left hours ago." That's when the panic sets in. That cold, sharp panic that every parent dreads when you know something is wrong. They call the police immediately. The search began almost instantly, and this is where you see the best of that community. It wasn't just a couple of cop cars. The entire mobile home park, the entire town of Tracy mobilized. Hundreds of volunteers, neighbors, friends, people who had watched this girl grow up, all out there with flashlights, combing fields, knocking on every single door. The police are doing their thing. They pull surveillance footage from a camera on a nearby property, and they find it. The last known sighting of Sandra Cantu. The footage shows her just skipping, walking past the home of a neighbor. This is just a data point, right? It's the last place she was seen. But let's pause on this because it's everything. The house she walks past belongs to Melissa Huckabee. Melissa was 28. She was a single mom to her own 5-year-old daughter. And here's the kicker. She was the granddaughter of the local pastor. She taught Sunday school at his church. She was trusted. Sandra Cantu played with her daughter. And as the search for Sandra intensifies, Melissa Huckabee is right there in the middle of it. She's out there helping search. She's comforting Sandra's mom, Maria. She's even doing interviews with the local news, crying on camera about how scared she is, how she just wants Sandra to be found. Tell me I'm not the only one who finds that suspicious. It's that performative grief we see time and time again. It's too loud. It's too central. She's not just a background helper. She's trying to be a main character in the tragedy. The search goes on for 10 agonizing days. 10 days of Sandra's face on every telephone pole, on every news channel. The FBI gets involved. They're dragging reservoirs, they're searching registered sex offenders' homes. Nothing. And then, April 6th, 10 days later, Some farm workers are draining an irrigation pond just a couple of miles from the mobile home park. They find a suitcase. A big, black, rolling suitcase submerged in the water, and inside, they find Sandra. The entire community just breaks. The hope that they'd all been clinging to for 10 days, that she'd be found alive, maybe she ran away, maybe someone took her but she's okay. It all just evaporates. The investigation obviously pivots. This is a homicide. And the focus is now on that suitcase. It's a Samsonite brand rolling bag, and the police get a tip, a massive tip. A woman from the mobile home park tells police, "I recognize that suitcase. It's Melissa Huckabee's. I know it is, because her name is written on the inside." Boom. Police zero in on Melissa. And this is where the story goes from tragic to just bizarre. As the investigation is unfolding, but before the suitcase is publicly linked to her, Melissa starts acting even more erratically. She goes to the police with a story. She says she was the victim of a crime. She claims that just weeks before Sandra disappeared, her own 5-year-old daughter was kidnapped and then mysteriously returned. No police report was ever filed, of course. Then she tells them she found a note, a handwritten note, on the ground near her church. She claims the note said, "Cantu, locked in stolen suitcase, thrown in water, Tracy." Honestly, that doesn't sit right with me. It's the most pathetic, clumsy attempt at misdirection I've ever heard. It's like something a 5-year-old would make up. Who does this? Who plants a clue that points directly to the exact circumstances of the murder? Someone who thinks they're smarter than everyone else, and someone who is desperate to be the one who solves the case. But wait, it gets weirder. The day Sandra disappeared, Melissa had apparently drugged her own daughter and another child she was watching with a muscle relaxer and some Kool-Aid. Why? We don't really know. Was she practicing? Was she trying to get them out of the way so she could... What? I've got a theory, and you're probably going to agree. This was never about a stranger. This was about Melissa. Everything was about Melissa. They arrest her on April 10th, and her story just crumbles. She confesses. She admits she lured Sandra into her home. Huckabee lured Sandra from the mobile home park into Clover Road Baptist Church, where Huckabee taught Sunday school. Evidence later showed that Sandra was murdered inside the church building. The autopsy confirmed that Sandra died from homicidal asphyxiation, and prosecutors stated that the killing occurred at the church before Huckabee concealed her body in a staircase and disposed of it in an irrigation pond. But the autopsy also found other injuries. It was a sexually motivated crime. This wasn't a kidnapping for ransom gone wrong. That whole note was a fantasy. This was something much, much darker. She had lured Sandra in. She murdered her. She stuffed her body into that suitcase, her own suitcase, with her name in it, and then drove it to that pond and dumped it. And then she went home, and she played the part of the grieving neighbor for 10 days. She hugged Sandra's mother, so why? That's always the question, isn't it? Why would a 28-year-old Sunday school teacher, a mother, do this? The prosecution, the investigators, the psychologists, they all pointed to a few things. She was known to be a pathological liar. She had a history of, let's call it, erratic behavior, bizarre medical claims, setting a fire at a hospital, the faked kidnapping of her daughter. She was apparently failing out of nursing school. She'd been arrested for petty theft. Her life was not the shiny, perfect pastor's granddaughter image she tried to project. You know what I think this really was? This was about attention. This was a woman so pathologically desperate for drama, for the spotlight, that she was willing to create a tragedy. Think about it. She inserts herself at every stage. She's the grieving neighbor. She's the victim of a previous fake kidnapping. She's the one who finds the note. It's that twisted hero complex. She wanted to be the center of this story, and in her warped mind, she created a story where she could be the victim, the helper, and maybe even the hero who solved it. And Sandra Cantu, that poor little girl, was just a prop in Melissa's sick drama. That to me is cold-blooded. It's not a crime of passion. It's a crime of calculation. But it's such stupid, narcissistic calculation. The trial was set. The community of Tracy was braced for this long, horrible, traumatizing trial where all these details would be dragged out. But then, a year later, in May 2010, Melissa Huckabee changed her plea. She pleaded guilty to first-degree murder with the special circumstance of kidnapping. This plea deal took the death penalty off the table. But it also, and this is the important part, it spared Sandra's family from having to sit through a trial, from having to hear every last agonizing detail of what was done to their daughter. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. When she was given a chance to speak at her sentencing, she gave this rambling, tearful, I'm not even going to call it an apology. It was an excuse. She said, I don't know why I did it. I still don't know why. Honestly, that doesn't sit right with me. I don't buy the I don't know defense. You know you're a liar. You know you're manipulative. You know you took that little girl's life. I don't know is just one more manipulation. It's a coward's way out. She's in prison in Chowchilla, where she'll stay for the rest of her life.